Anxious to get that intro over with. I've been waiting, I guess, on pins and needles since Saturday afternoon to come back on the air and talk to you about what is going on in Arkansas politics. Good morning to you. Thanks for starting the beginning of your week. I hope it's a prosperous one. With us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. That liberty machine stands in contrast to everything that the Republican Party establishment stands for. They don't like the truth getting to the voters. They don't like a vital component of that liberty machine, which is a mirror that actually will show the politicians who they really are, not who they like to believe themselves to be. Like, I'm a great conservative. And then we show them, no, this is what you said on the campaign trail. This is what you're actually doing. You're not the same person, and they hate that. They hate the mirror. They can't stand it. Right now, we're the liberty machine, it just is what it is. I mean, a mirror, what are you going to argue with a mirror? See, they don't like that. Right now, Asa Hutchinson, he can't stand the fact that the liberty machine is getting the truth to the voters, and we're also showing him, and we're showing his supporters, and we're showing anybody who supports him and has gone along with this joke of leadership in this state under the guise of republicanism, violating the platform time and time again. We're showing them who they really are, and they're not conservatives. Now, why am I so fired up this morning on this Monday? Well, I don't know how long it's going to take to get through all of this, but our whiteboard for this week says tangled web. Tangled web, but web is spelled with two B's at the end because, of course, we're referring to the Republican Party of Arkansas State Chairman Doyle Webb. Now, before we get to what happened this weekend, and I just want you to know you need to stick with us because you're going to hear what you will not hear anywhere else. Okay, we have the minutia of this story. I can tell you what is being reported is not accurate, but there's a reason. Why it's not accurate, because Doyle Webb has not asked for a retraction on something that he did not say. But I'm going to get to that in a minute. First, let's talk about Doyle Webb for a second. Let's talk about the Republican Party of Arkansas chairman, shall we? Okay. He is no fan of Jan Morgan. He is no fan of Jan Morgan. I'm going to go over this with you right now, okay? Back in September, when Jan Morgan was deciding whether or not she was going to run for governor and challenge Asa Hutchinson, she was deciding whether or not she was going to form an exploratory committee to see if she could even run for governor. All of this happened. And of course, Jan Morgan has a huge social media presence. She is, by the way, a genuine social media presence, not the kind that you buy like Twitter bots, which we're probably going to have to talk about that tomorrow. But Ace is at it again, buying votes and using Twitter bots. The last time they had that bogus national poll that said that Asa was the third most popular governor. By the way, there are no conservative governors on that list. Like Scott Walker, he's not on that list, but Ace is the third most popular governor in the nation. Then that was retweeted like 90-something times, and the majority of the retweets were at Saudi Arabia Uber 1, at Saudi Arabia Uber 34, at Saudi Arabia Uber. Those were the retweets that Asa got. So, I mean, he's been exposed as using this before. He's desperate to try to compete with Jan Morgan's genuine grassroots, realistic social media outreach. But so back when all this was going on, when this first started, you need to know one thing. Doyle Webb blocked and unfriended Jan Morgan on social media. Now, that right there is essentially saying you're not going to have my support. Now, I don't know why he would do that. I don't know why Doyle Webb would block Jan Morgan on social media, but that happened from the outset of this entire dispute between the Republican Party establishment, which is Asa Hutchinson, and now apparently Doyle Webb. But see, then it went even further. So you have Jan Morgan, and she starts getting these invites to Republican county committees all across the state. And then she gets uninvited from the Craighead County. She almost got uninvited from Mississippi County, but they stood up and they said no to the governor's spokesperson. The pressure, not spokesperson, but the governor's employee, Doug Smith, not only sent a phone call to now we know Dorothy Crockett because she's on social media saying so, and we have the emails from the governor's employee trying to put pressure on the county committee of Mississippi County and say we don't want Jan Morgan here, and it went on in other committees as well, like Baxter County as well. So all of this pressure was coming down the pike. And eventually it gets to Washington County, and Jan Morgan goes and speaks at Washington County. And Washington County, like they do with every single guest on their Facebook post, on their Facebook page, they just say, hey, this was our speaker this week. We wish her the best of luck in her future endeavors. Doyle Webb called the chairman of the Washington County Republican Committee and demanded that they take the Facebook post down, saying, best of luck in your future endeavors, which is actually a very general statement, very broad. It could mean a lot of things. Doyle Webb was so sensitive that he had them take the post down, and later they changed it and they edited it to something actually that seemed worse than the first. But anyway, we interviewed the Washington County Republican chairman. We talked about all this. This has all been exposed before Christmas, that Doyle Webb, the RPA, when I say the RPA, I don't mean the entire RPA. Let me just be clear. When I say the RPA, I'm talking about the ones at the office down in Little Rock that'll have their little meetings with Asa and decide which true conservative they need to primary to get to replace, so they'll have somebody who's loyal to Asa. That's the RPA that I'm talking about here. Because honestly, the RPA, the base is conservative, and there is a soft tyranny at play here. So you have Washington County's Facebook post being policed by the Central Committee. Okay? Now, look, here's the thing. And you can go back and you can look at my interview with a Washington County chairman, right? Okay? The fact is, you go back and look at it, it's very clear. All right. The chairman of the Washington County would probably disagree with my characterization, but in the interview, I mean, I straight up asked him, I said, if Doyle Webb hadn't called, would you have changed the Facebook post? If Doyle Webb hadn't called, would you have changed the Facebook post? And the answer is no, you wouldn't have. Okay. So period. We know how sensitive Doyle Webb is on this, right? All right. So then moving on, you have this that came out in December. Okay. The county chairman's resolution. Basically trying to stand up for freedom of thought in an open debate, in an open, supposedly free party where we're going to debate ideas. Asa and the Republican Party establishment. Joe, put up this. We want to put up not the rules, but we want to put up the resolution. Okay. Here is this resolution that back on December the 2nd of 2015. Okay, be it resolved by the Arkansas Republican Party County Chairman's Association, all Republican county committees are independent organizations operating under the rules of the Republican Party of Arkansas and are governed by the rules of the state party and rules of each local county committee. All Republicans and Republican organizations are hereby reminded that each county committee has both the right and obligation to encourage a healthy debate and deliberation within their county and are free to invite any speaker or presenter that, in the view of their chairman or other designated member of that committee or the county committee as a whole, would contribute to educate and inform Republicans in that county on issues of concern. Therefore, as representatives of the 75 county committees, we remind our fellow Republicans of that any efforts to restrict county committees from inviting guest speakers or any other presenter that they see fit violates the delegated and implied powers and responsibilities of each county committee and county chairman. Counties are reminded that speakers and programs should promote the principles outlined in the Arkansas Republican Party platform and principles. This adopted this date, Saturday, December 2nd of 2017. Now, why in the world would the County Chairman's Association, which to me is the real RPA, feel the need to clarify? Because they were being bullied? That's why. They're being bullied by people who think they own the party. And that person right now, the head of that is Governor Asa Hutchinson. All right. And I'm going to say now, in my opinion, it's Doyle Webb. So before we get to the news of the weekend and what all happened at the Political Animals Club, the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals Club on Friday, you need to know that Doyle Webb has blocked Jan Morgan on social media. You need to know about the Washington County incident. You need to know about the pressure that's been applied from the governor's office, Mississippi County, Craighead County, Baxter County, Washington County. And you need to know about this resolution where the county committees say, hey, we're autonomous, and if we want to have Jan Morgan to speak, we'd like to have Jan Morgan to speak. If we want to have Asa Hutchinson to speak, we're going to have Asa Hutchinson to speak. Although we all know that it wouldn't have been a problem if we're just talking about having Asa to speak. Okay, we all know that, right? So here we go. Talk business and politics, Joe. No, actually, stop. Let's go to the rules. Go to the rules. So, what are the rules concerning primaries in Republican committees? What are those rules? Well, they're very specific, and they essentially say this: the Republican Party in each county shall hold a primary election in every even-numbered year. Number one, except for support of candidates in a presidential preferential primary, the state chairman, the national committee man, the national committee woman, the district chairman, county election commissioners, that goes and lists all these things, shall not endorse or otherwise publicly show favoritism to one Republican candidate over another prior to the Republican nominee being elected. Jan Morgan's been blocked on social media. You think that qualifies? The chairman of the RPA's blocked Jan Morgan on social media. You think that qualifies? Do you? I mean, is that favoritism? I mean, I would say so. Okay. The state executive committee and or the respective county committees. All right. So you can't show any favoritism over other candidates. That's what it's saying. And here we have the chairman, Doyle Webb, on Friday, speaking to the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals Club. Let's start with the audio, Joe. Here's what he said in his speech. This is Doyle Webb. Listen to this.
I pick up a red seat or two, but we know that the Republicans that are in office represent the views of their constituency, and we see our constituency coming out to vote in large numbers this time.
Stop. So let me paint the picture for you. So you have Sarah Jo, who works for the RPA. She's holding up a map of the blue and the red of Arkansas and how much red is covering the state of Arkansas. That's what she's doing right there, okay? And why are people, listen to what Doyle Webb says, why are people going to come out and vote? Well, because Republicans are representing the views of their constituents, which a lot of them are not. But so he says, thank you, Sarah Jo, and he takes down the map, back it up a little bit. Actually, start from the beginning and listen.
Pick up a red seat or two, but we know that the Republicans that are in office represent the views of their constituency, and we see our constituency coming out to vote in large numbers this time. Thank you, Sarah Jo. Why do we see that happening? We have a governor that is the third most popular in the nation, the most popular governor in the South, who has lived up to his promises. Computer coding, Arkansas is now recognized by the computer coding and our strides in computer education in all of our schools. Under Republican leadership, we have had the lowest unemployment in the state's history. Lowest unemployment. He has brought 60,000 jobs into the state. If we've had the lowest unemployment, we've also had the highest reduction in income taxes, which is a great Republican position. Low unemployment, high tax reduction, and job creation and focus on education. That's what a Republican legislature, a Republican governor, a Republican leadership will do, and that's what we anticipate occurring over the next 2 years.
So he says everything but re-elect Governor Asa Hutchinson. This is a joke. You're going to give a speech on the state of the Republican Party, but it's cloaked. It's not really being objective. Those are Asa Hutchinson's campaign talking points, and the premise of his statement is that we have large majorities that are going to come out Do you know why the large majorities of Republicans are going to come out this next election cycle? Because Asa Hutchinson's the third most popular governor in some weird national poll that they did. Are you kidding me? That's what you lead with? Now you tell me, is that favoritism or is that not favoritism? It sounds like favoritism to me. And we haven't even gotten to what made the headlines. Here's the headline: Talk Business and Politics. Before we go to break, the first sentence: Arkansas Republican Party Chairman Doyle Webb thinks Asa Hutchinson will handily defeat challenger Jan Morgan in the upcoming Republican primary this spring. I have a perspective you're not going to get anywhere else. Stay tuned, because did he really say the words handily defeat? I'll tell you when we come back. Don't go anywhere. I've firmly established there is clear favoritism that's already taken place for anyone that would care to actually look at what's been going on within this Republican Party primary. It's clear Jan Morgan is not the establishment, and this is the understatement of the century, and Asa Hutchinson is the establishment, okay? And the current leadership of the RPA is the establishment, because their mentality is this: I've worked my whole life to build a party, and now I just don't want to see it divided. I don't want to see it torn down. Well, okay, what if you have built something that was initially good, but now it's just been co-opted by the same forces that you were fighting your entire career? And that's what's going on here, because we essentially don't have any of the real reforms the people have been voting for. Okay, so here we go. How did this all start? What happened this weekend? Well, Doyle Webb, who is the chairman of the Republican Party of Arkansas, not supposed to show favoritism according to the party rules, and Democratic Party Chairman Michael John Gray were at the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals Club on Friday. And we just played for you the speech Doyle Webb gave, where he basically was regurgitating Asa Hutchinson's campaign talking points. Again, he's supposed to be neutral, guys. He's supposed to be neutral. Believe him. Believe him. He's neutral. He knows how to be fair. Unbelievable. And so we get this first... Show the article. Talk Business and Politics. George Jared reports, quote, Arkansas Republican Party Chairman Doyle Webb thinks Governor Asa Hutchinson will handedly defeat challenger Jan Morgan in the upcoming Republican primary this spring. Okay, handedly defeat. Okay, now skipping down, third paragraph, a primary will be good for the party and it will help to bring out the base, Webb said. When the dust settles, Hutchinson will be the nominee of the party. Since becoming governor, the state's unemployment rate has dipped to historic lows, as have state income tax cuts, he said. Quote, I don't think she'll do any damage. All right, let's stop right there. This story gets picked up by KATV, which is ABC affiliate. And KATV tweets this: Arkansas Republican Party Chairman Webb, quote, Governor Hutchinson will handedly defeat Jan Morgan. Now, notice, just basic journalism here, notice that handedly defeat in the Talk Business article was not in quotations. Now, this is going to make sense here in just a minute. But now it is in quotations from KATV News, okay? All right, so then they write the article, and you can see the full article up there. We have it. Republican Party Chairman Doyle Webb thinks Asa Hutchinson will handily defeat challenger Jan Morgan. And they essentially are just reposting, okay, what the Talk Business and Politics article was. And so I was very curious here. Aside from the other stuff that Webb said that I think is wrong in terms of, in an attempt to stay neutral, I really wanted to know, did he say that? Did he say handedly defeat? Because I have the audio, and I didn't hear it in the audio, so I reached out to Talk Business and Politics, the person who wrote the original story, George Jared, and I asked him, hey, am I missing something? Do you have an exact quote on handily defeat? And this is what he sent back. We have a copy. Here it is. This is George Jared, and he responds to me. He says, hey, Paul, he didn't use the word handedly, but it was obvious from his body language, words, and his tone that he thinks Asa will easily win the primary. Okay, so that is his response. That is George Jared's response. And so here is the next question that you won't hear anyone ask. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. Are you ready for it? Why didn't Doyle Webb demand a retraction? He has had all weekend to say, "I never said that. I never said that that he would handily defeat her. I never said that." Why did he never retract the story? Why is he allowing what some might say is, a little bit of relaxed journalism? Why would he let this continue to go? I'll tell you why. Because if you demanded a retraction, you'd actually have to stand up for Jan Morgan. That's why. If he demanded a retraction and said, "I didn't actually say handily defeat," you would actually have to be saying something positive about Jan Morgan. And instead, he accepts the story and he says something negative about her, and we have that audio for you next. It's just amazing to me. I mean, if you read the original Talk Business and Politics article, they're attributing this to Doyle Webb, but they don't actually put it in quotes. A primary will be good for the party. It'll help bring out the base. Webb did actually say that. I've got that queued up here in just a minute. When the dust settles, Hutchinson will be the nominee of the party. Since becoming governor, the state's unemployment rate. Okay, so he didn't say in the audio I have, when the dust settles, he's going to be the nominee of the party. But he did talk about how the state's unemployment rate is dipped and blah 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 blah, and how Ace is the most popular governor in the South, and so essentially it's very clear. If you take the totality of what happened on Friday, it is clear that Doyle Webb wants Asa Hutchinson to be the nominee. Everybody, and by the way, everybody knows it. Let's quit pretending. You're just having to do this false cloak of objectivity. But the interesting thing is, again, he did not say that Asa will handily defeat Jan Morgan. He didn't actually say that, but that gets reported, it gets picked up, and it gets by the way, it gets retweeted by Asa supporters on social media, and Doyle Webb will not come out and demand a retraction, and again, because he is actually furthering this narrative. By not coming out and demanding a retraction, now it's just, okay, you're complicit in this, and so what happened when KATV puts out the story on the Talk Business and puts it in quotes. Doyle Webb, Asa will handily defeat Jan Morgan. That's attributed to Doyle Webb, according to KATV. Right there, you see it. Handily defeat Jan Morgan. So, Jan Morgan calls for the resignation. Go to this next tweet. Jan Morgan calls for the resignation of Doyle Webb for violation of party rules. Back up a little bit. It's going to be the next one. Yeah, right there. Here's Janelle Lilly. From KATV, Republican primary gubernatorial candidate Jan Morgan calls for the resignation of RPA Chairman Doyle Webb after Webb told at Roby Brock that Asa Hutchinson will handily defeat Jan Morgan. Rules prohibit RPA from endorsing primary candidates. That's exactly right. Matter of fact, even John Brummett was like, she has a point. Everybody's taking, but it's hilarious, everybody's taking the attributed quote to Doyle Webb as handily defeat as truth, because that's what KATV reported. That's what Talk Business and Politics initially reported. But again, we have from the author saying he didn't actually say. The author of the story, George Jarrett, wrote me back, thankfully, and he said he didn't actually say handily defeat. So why doesn't Doyle Webb demand a retraction? Again, because it would put Jan Morgan in a positive light. That's why he doesn't demand a retraction. Okay? Instead, go to the last audio clip we have. Instead, Doyle Webb says this.
Yesterday, Channel 7 spoke with Doyle Webb, the chairman of the Republican Party in Arkansas, after calls for his resignation. Talk Business and Politics reported at a Political Animals Club meeting on Friday that Webb predicted that Governor Asa Hutchinson would handily defeat challenger Jan Morgan in the upcoming primary. Morgan accused Webb of violating party rules and called on him to resign. Here's what Webb had to say today.
Of course I'm not going to resign. When a candidate who we welcomes into the party looks to social media to determine what a chairman says and doesn't understand my history in the party and how fair I have been with all candidates, I'm not going to resign. I just encourage her to get active in the party so that she understands how the party works.
Okay, what a hit job.
Overnight, Senator
what an absolute hit job. Looks to social media. Chairman Webb, she wasn't looking to social media. She was looking at KATV, who you are talking to right now in this interview, which you could have said, I never said handily defeat, but you don't. And instead, you try to turn it around on her. Well, instead of looking to social media, and she should realize what I've done for this party all my life and how fair I've always been, and what's going on here? I think it's obvious what's going on here.
He also says that she needs to get involved with the party. I'm pretty sure she's pretty involved. She's been to a lot of she's been all over the state.
She has been involved with the party, and she's actually been involved with the cause on the national front for a very long time. And was honestly backing the citizen, was the spokesperson for Citizens for Trump back when Asa and the boys were back in Marco Rubio. Okay. So anyway, this whole thing is fascinating. What has transpired? Because I mean, all right. Can we just take a moment here? You're actually getting the truth from this program, okay? Like you're actually getting what has happened and how people are reacting to stories. Now, why would Doyle Webb not ask for a retraction? That's the question you have to ask. That is to me the number one question on this whole thing. Why wouldn't he ask for a retraction? I mean, if somebody writes an article about me or somebody writes an article about you and gets the quote wrong, what are you going to just go? Are you going to let them go along with it, and then it creates a big storm out of it? I mean, Doyle's been getting text messages from activists saying you need to resign because you said this. I mean, that's what's been going on. Listen to let me go to back to Friday. This is the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals Club, and let's get the question. This is the actual question from George Jared, Jan Morgan, giving Asa a run for his money. That's not even the question. Basically, Asa Hutchinson has a primary opponent. Will Jan do any damage? And here's what Doyle says.
Either one of you guys can answer this. Asa Hutchinson has a primary opponent, Jan Morgan. How much damage do you think that she could possibly do to him in the primaries?
I guess I'll answer that one first. Yes. I'm interested to hear. I don't think that she will do any damage. Okay? That's good. I don't think that she'll do any damage. I think that we're a party that's open. I think that now we have primaries, and primaries are good. It activates the base, and we'll come back together to vote for the nominee in any race.
Okay, stop. All right, so that's Doyle. Now, this audio, I want to make this clear. I want to give a hat tip, and this is audio that was posted on Facebook at NEA Report. Okay, that's NEA Report. They did a video of this, and that's where. And you can, by the way, you can go there to that full video at the 26-minute mark is where we are right now in the video, the 26-minute mark. Okay, that's NEA Report. They're actually I really appreciate their coverage and all the stuff they've been doing in the community in NEA. It's a really good resource. But this is their video / audio here. Notice what he says. I don't think she'll do any damage. Okay, that's his initial comment. There's a pause, and he has to get a microphone. Then he says, I don't think she'll do any damage. Primaries are a good thing. Okay, and everything else. Primaries are a good thing. Blah blah blah. We're going to come back and we'll support the nominee. Now he doesn't say the nominee Asa. He doesn't say the nominee Jan. He just says we're going to support the nominee. But somehow, and if you go back and listen to what George Jared said, his body language, his words, his speech on how great Asa was, the talking points of Asa's campaign, everything, if you go back and take the totality, it is clear, at least it was clear to at least George Jared, according to his reporting, that Doyle thinks that Asa will handily defeat Jan. And that's what gets reported, and then the whole thing goes from there. Now, what do the Democrats say? What does Michael John Gray say? What does Michael John Gray think about Jan Morgan and her candidacy for governor? Listen.
So obviously it's more for the chairman is what damage it would do in the party. I
think the only answer I'd have to that is when you start seeing the divisive politics that candidate for Governor Morgan is promoting, that's bad for Arkansas. It doesn't allow to have those conversations that we need to have, that understanding that it's okay to disagree as long as we're thinking about people. That's the damage I see, is to continue to promote the worst of, all due respect, Mr. Chairman, the worst of some of the elements of a growing Republican Party, and that could do some real damage to even act like that's normal to be like that.
Stop. Hang on, keep going, just for a second. I want everyone to make sure.
All right, George had a really good question.
Stop. All right. Not a word of protest from Doyle Webb about the Republican Party base. The Democrats, the Michael John Gray, the party chairman, he just trashed basically pretty much everyone that's listening to this program right now. All of you, the base. That if you're thinking about supporting Jan Morgan, or you are supporting Jan Morgan, you are the worst of the party. This is a deplorables moment, quite frankly, that we are the deplorables. Bad for Arkansas. Worst of the Republican Party. This is, ladies and gentlemen, it's pretty immense, right? It's pretty dense, right? Bad for Arkansas. Not a word of protest. Not a word of protest. So where do we go from here? What do we do from here? I mean, Chairman Webb, you heard him. You heard him on KATV. He doesn't think that he should resign. Okay, all right. I mean, I don't expect him to. Just because I don't think anybody's going to. I mean, folks, if they won't ask Jake Files to resign, Senator Jake Files, the head of the Revenue and Tax Committee in the Senate, who has been named in a sworn FBI affidavit as committing wire fraud. I mean, if they won't ask him to resign publicly, if Asa won't ask him to resign publicly, of course, they didn't want to do that because that would have triggered a special election, and State Representative Matt Pitch, who's in line for the promotion, wouldn't be allowed to run in a special election. Okay, so they made sure. See how they make sure all their little ducks are in a row. And I promise you, there's been some RPA meetings about that. It's my speculation, but I wasn't born yesterday, and neither were any of you. We see what's going on here. I don't know where we go from here. I mean, I know he says primaries are a good thing. I agree with him. Matter of fact, Chairman Webb has been on this program before. Chairman Webb is welcome to come back on this program and explain, by the way, anything he wants to about this. But I was watching this story unfold all weekend, and I was watching. When I got that email back and I found out he didn't actually say handily defeat, I was like, okay, well. And I was talking to a member of the Republican Party last night. Via text, was talking to this person, and we were discussing, how the story appears to have just been inaccurate. That this talk business and politics story was inaccurate from the beginning. It appeared like not entirely, but I mean, if you say handily defeat, and maybe it's more KATV's fault for picking up on a quote that wasn't actually a quote in the story. That you have more of an opinion here about what is going on in the body language and the words that he was using, and then you get the quote, or you get the question, which is, do you think she's going to do any damage? And he says, no, I'm not going to do any damage. I mean, it's very easy to interpret that, especially after you've seen a campaign speech for Asa Hutchinson delivered by the RPA chairman. It's very easy to interpret that, I could see, as saying, all right, you don't think Jan Morgan will do any damage to Asa. Another way to interpret that would be there's not going to be any damage done to the establishment of the political party. You could also say, I mean, if you listen to Michael John Gray's comments about how Jan Morgan supporters are the worst of the base, there are people in the Republican Party and the RPA that believe that as well. There are people in the RPA today, there are establishment Republicans today, who also believe that Jan Morgan supporters who claim to be Republicans and conservatives are the worst of the party. I certainly don't believe that. Is it safe to say that both Doyle Webb, who is the Republican chair, and Michael John Gray, who is the Democrat chair, both want Asa Hutchinson to be the Republican nominee? Is that a stretch? Honestly, if we're in Realville and we actually sit down and we look at the fact that Doyle Webb has blocked Jan Morgan on social media, he's welcome to come on and explain that. That Doyle Webb called the Washington County, chairman to talk about it. Let me say this, to talk about a Facebook post. And we interviewed the chairman, and I asked him if he would have taken the post down if Doyle hadn't called, and I think we all know the answer to that. The county chairman resolution basically saying that we're autonomous and the ASA and the RPA establishment need to leave county committees alone when it comes to guests. I mean, we can go down the list here. If we're in Realville, does anyone honestly expect us to believe that Doyle Webb wants Jan Morgan to be the nominee? I mean, we know the Democrats don't. It just seems like there's a weird unity here, and we keep seeing this. 3 weeks ago, during the budget appropriation hearings, we had Democrat senators standing up for Asa Hutchinson's appropriation budget, the recommendation. They were standing up and speaking against conservatives who were trying to make very small and reasonable cuts. And the Democrats are standing up for Asa's budget. Folks, this happens all the time, right? You have John Brummett, a liberal progressive journalist, writing hit pieces on Donald Trump, but writing praise pieces on Asa Hutchinson. At what point, what would Asa Hutchinson have to do to not get your support if you're an establishment person? I really would love to know. What would he have to do? Okay, he's advocated for tax increases. He's passed tax increases. Okay, he finds primary challengers for the conservatives that have better voting records than the establishment Republicans. What else would he have to do? And if your answer is, well, he'd have to leave the Republican Party and become a Democrat, that's the only way I would ever oppose him. If that's your answer, I don't know what you're committed to. Okay? We have words versus action, words versus works, and Asa Hutchinson has a record, and that's why you are seeing this. That's why you're seeing him buy Twitter bots, and spending this money on social media, because Jan Morgan actually has grassroots support and a real social media following, and that's very scary to them. I think this entire hour we've done a very good job of laying out what happened and, really kind of cutting through the spin here. Again, the question is, why didn't Doyle Webb ask for a retraction when he did not say handedly defeat? Didn't say those words. As a matter of fact, if you listen to what he said, even though he said Jan's not going to do any damage to Asa, he goes on to say primaries are a good thing. Now, I can see through it because we played for you his actual speech, which was campaign talking points. But why didn't he push? Why didn't he say, no, this is wrong? Because it took off like wildfire. It went from a talk business story to KATV to a follow-up report on TV, where then they asked him, are you going to resign? And he takes that opportunity. Because let's be clear here. Asking Doyle Webb to resign for saying that Asa would handily defeat Jan is picking sides. It's affecting, at the very least, the psychology of the situation. And by the way, I'm very aware of the psychological effect this program has on the people in the Marble Palace. We got to take a break, folks. You're listening to Conduit News Radio. My name is Paul Harrell. Good morning to you. I've been awake for a long time getting ready for this because I just couldn't wait to give you news and analysis this morning. You can find out more. Go to conduitnews.com or check us out. We're broadcasting live video, facebook.com/Conduit News. Back in just a moment. You do realize that when Asa I'm sorry, you do realize that when KATV picked up on the story over at Talk Business and Politics, and they said that handily defeat. Doyle Webb says Asa will handily defeat. Of course, we've established, according to the person who was there, the reporter who wrote this, George Jarrett, he said he didn't actually say handily defeat. KATV picks it up, attributes it directly to Doyle Webb. And when that happens, everything freaks out. I mean, you should have seen social media. Everything just kind of exploded this week in saying Doyle Webb should resign. And we established this whole hour that this is actually a long train of abuses, whether or not he said it or not. But I want you to realize that then Michael John Gray goes on, the Democrat chairman, and says that Jan Morgan's divisive, and she promotes, quote, the worst elements of the Republican base. Do you realize that yesterday KATV came out with another tweet, and it was an in case you missed it tweet, and they attributed Michael John Gray's worst elements of the party, quote, to Doyle Webb. They attributed it to Doyle. Now, it's not up anymore. The tweet has been taken down. At least I couldn't find it this morning, but I think it had been replaced with just the original headline of handily defeat. They're still sticking with handily defeat. And so Doyle's been asked to resign. Jan Morgan says you should resign. I've gone down the list of really reasons why he should, by the way, aside from this handily defeat. But the fact that he was given a campaign talking point speech for Asa, literally, he said that large majorities are going to come out and vote Republican because Asa Hutchinson's the third most popular governor in the nation. How is that not a campaign talking point? How are you not in the tank for Asa? And any reasonable person. So KATV attributes a quote to Doyle that he didn't say. Doyle, given the opportunity to retract and say, I never said that, instead turns it around to attack Jan Morgan. Listen.
I'm not going to resign. When a candidate who we welcomes into the party looks to social media to determine what a chairman says and doesn't understand my history in the party and how fair I have been with all candidates, I'm not going to resign. I just encourage her to get active in the party so that she understands.
Doyle, if you've been fair, why'd you block her on social media in September? Why did you block her? If you've been fair and you have this history, why did you block her? I mean, that's the first thing you did that showed bias. That's a violation of rules, favoritism. Did you block Asa? Have you blocked Asa Hutchinson on social media? You're the one that brought up social media, Doyle. So that's the reason I ask. You're the one that brought up social media. And by the way, Jan wasn't looking to social media. Jan was looking to a report from KATV. The whole thing, folks, is amazing. Instead of asking for a retraction that would have required the chairman of the GOP, Doyle Webb, to actually stand up for Jan Morgan and say, you know what, I didn't say that Asa would handily defeat. That actually would hurt Asa, right? That would give, he didn't say that. He didn't say that. So maybe Asa isn't going to handily defeat Jan. Maybe Jan is going to handily defeat Asa. It leaves the door open for the possibility, right? I'm telling you, man, these people are trying to protect the status quo at all costs. And that status quo is bigger government. Because we have a Republican establishment that is in the leadership that they have tried in the last 2 years at least to grow government, to raise taxes. They refuse to lead us out of Obamacare in this state. And the status quo remains intact. We got one more hour coming your way next. Don't go anywhere.